Hello and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you all for joining us. Today's webinar is going to be focused on how to support residential net zero energy through utility programs. Net zero energy buildings don't happen all by themselves, and utility programs are doing their part to help the cause through incentives and design assistance. You're going to learn how your projects can help improve energy efficiency by achieving net zero energy from local utility programs. Our presenter today is Matthew Christie with TRC Solutions. Build a Green is a nonprofit membership-based organization that focuses on providing resources to building professionals, architects, engineers, contractors, realtors, and appraisers, and homeowners who are searching for healthy and resource-efficient buildings and design. We host a few certification trainings that some of you in the audience may have taken, and we work hard to supplement those trainings with additional educational opportunities, such as these webinars and some conferences that we hold annually. We often try to present the latest technologies and design techniques that open the discussion for the future of green building. Innovative water conservation and energy efficiency solutions like passive heating, solar water heating, electric charging stations, drain water heat recovery, and even living roofs have all begun to take hold in our cities and are making their ways into all parts of the state. Residents are not only soon to become better educated about resource conservation, but they will begin to look for properties that reflect those values back to them. Build a Green is here to provide resources and connect you with experts who can help you in achieving net zero energy homes. Today's presenter is Matthew Christie. He is a senior project manager at TRC Energy Services. He has a depth of experience designing and managing utility incentive programs across the residential market sector, including design of the California Advanced Homes Program, CAHP. He also supports the development of California's Title 24 and energy codes. His program design approach focuses on whole building energy use and zero net energy initiatives. Building off the grid used to be a scary idea, but with reliable and less expensive solar and other equipment, it becomes pretty painless. And this talk is about sharing these ideas and how utility programs can help you achieve these net zero energy measures. Please join me, everyone, in welcoming Matthew Christie.
All right, good morning. So we're waiting for the presentation to switch over to my screen, so just give me a moment there.
Awesome.
All right, and just confirm you're getting my PowerPoint and not my other screen for me, Leila.
That is perfect, Matthew.
All right, perfect. So thanks so much for inviting me. Thanks for having me here. I'm glad to talk to you. As you said, my name is Matt Christie. I work with TRC, and we design and implement and build utility programs, efficiency programs for multiple utilities. We also advise on the energy code itself and do evaluations and all sorts of other fun work in this field. And my primary role is working with California, the major California utilities, the IOUs, designing, developing, and implementing residential new construction programs. So I'm going to give you a little swing through of sort of how those programs are being built up to support the ZNE initiative, and then I have a chance to answer any questions that you may have. I also will sort of spot check a few times on what some of the other utilities are doing, the smaller munis, you know, the Rosevilles and the SMUDs and the TIDs and the LADWPs. Some of those aren't too small, but I'll be able to just sort of mention some stuff going on in the other utilities. I'm not as versed in those as I am in the primary IOUs. So the agenda for my talk, first I'm just going to talk about the actual residential ZNE goal in California and how it's defined. There's a lot of confusion and conflation in the market about what ZNE is in the California policy context, which is a little different than maybe what you think it is, or even what a typical person would think ZNE actually is conceptually. So I'm going to talk about that. Then I'm going to dive into some of the broader large-scale incentive programs that exist, as well as some of the design assistance programs that are more tailored towards really going deep into ZNE. So let's jump in and first start talking about the actual California policy. So California policy, the big, bold ZNE goals, and the word goal is actually really vital here. This is not a mandate. It's not a law. It's not in legislature. This is a policy goal. Now, there's a lot of weight behind it. The governor's behind it, the legislation's behind it, the CEC and the CPUC are behind it, but it is only a goal. So just wanted to put that out front. The goal is that all residential new construction is ZNE by 2020. And there's some commercial goals on this slide as well, but we're talking res today. Then there's that 50% of res building stock, that's retrofit projects, that the entire building stock is ZNE by 2030, 50% of it. The entire stock is ZNE by 2050. And the way that they're doing this code-wise on the new construction side is by ratcheting up Title 24 every 3 years, 3 years or so. And the most recent ratchet up was the 2013 code, which was about a 25% reduction in energy use relative to 2008 code. And we should see about the same bump when we get up to 2016 code, which is already in 15-day language and is going to be approved any minute now. And that doesn't go into effect until 2017. If you want to follow what's going on and what the state means by ZNE and how the state policy is pushing it, please do go look at the California Energy Commission and the California Public Utility Commission work on this. They put a lot of time and energy into it of what the strategic action plan is, how they see ZNE rolling out into the state and rolling through the state, and all the different pieces that need to come together from the contractors, the marketing, the Title 24 consultants, the code itself, the efficiency programs, all the different layers that make ZNE. They've had put together hundreds of pages of thought into how this is all going to play out, and I urge you to follow these proceedings and just keep an eye on it. If you're interested in being a ZNE designer in California, understanding how that fits into the state's policy puzzle is really important and can be really valuable to you. Definitions of ZNE. So that's why I keep harping on the California definition and the California policy, because the truth is ZNE, zero net energy, has a lot of conflicting and competing definitions in the marketplace that different people will use for their own different entrenched reasons. ZNE site energy, net site zero, that's probably the most common. That means you produce as much on site as you use. That gets a little funky if you're talking about natural gas use. You can't produce natural gas on site, so maybe you need to have an equivalent. So then you can talk about energy emissions or energy costs or net BTU site or net source energy. Source means that if I pull off of the power plant, which I only get a third of the energy that the power plant produces into my house, I have to offset that at a 3-to-1 ratio with what I eventually produce. You know, if I pull off the power plant at night, I have to make up for that entire energy load in the day at a 3-to-1 ratio, ballpark. Now, instead of all those definitions, California has fallen on a net TDV energy definition. Zero net TDV is what California's policy, Title 24 regulatory framework, is defining as ZNE for the state. TDV means time-dependent valuation, and it's the societal value of energy by time of day. And with the TDV concept, you can start comparing natural gas and electricity one-to-one, because there will be different multipliers to convert gas into TDV as what converts electricity into TDV. And these multipliers vary by the energy type, by the date and the hour. There's multipliers throughout the entire calendar year. Every single hour of the year has a different multiplier in each climate zone for each fuel type. And then there's even variations by building type, i.e. low-rise residential versus high-rise residential. So it gets very, very complicated, and there's about 4 people on the planet that fully, truly understand TDV. And the beauty of the TDV definition is that it really feeds the state's goals better. It fits the state's needs. It is easier to reach than either a site or a source definition for a building to get there. It is more definable. It doesn't totally knock out the power infrastructure this state has of power plants and natural gas lines and transmission lines. It is not an off-the-grid ZNE metric. It's an on-the-grid ZNE metric. So there's some would say good things about that world. The hard part is that it is complicated, it's complex, and your typical Mr. and Mrs. Smith buying a house that is labeled Z&E will not it's almost impossible to understand and communicate. It's very complicated. It does not mean zero energy bills. It's not even close to that. Because energy produced in the middle of the day has a really high TDV value, or used in the middle of the day, and energy used at night is very low. So their total bill will exist. They will be using net energy. They just won't be using net TDV if they meet this definition. So I've harped on that long enough. Let's talk about incentive programs, which is why I'm really here. So the residential incentive programs across the state, these are the 4 IOUs on the bottom there: PG&E, SoCal Edison, SoCal Gas, San Diego Gas and Electric. All 4 of them operate the California Advanced Homes Program. The little caveat is that in PG&E territory, multifamily is handled by the California Multifamily New Homes Program. It's an almost identical program. It's just run by under a slightly different brand, and it's also implemented by TRC, my company. But it's anything I say about California Advanced Homes pretty much applies to California Multifamily. They're very, very similar. These programs got a redesign in 2013 code. Before we used to, and you're all probably familiar with this, or you may be, the metric of percent above code used to be in California how we all spoke about what makes an energy efficient building. Was it 15% above code? Was it 30? Was it tier 1, tier 2? Those are the 2 tiers. Percent above code, that's the higher it is, the more efficient your building is. When we started analyzing that for this code change, we realized that that metric is entirely flawed and has fallen apart. It's collapsed underneath its own weight. It does not make any sense. The problems of it are it doesn't align with Z&E. What percent above code do you have to be? There's so much variation by climate zone, by building size, by building type. It doesn't really fit. You're not marching towards zero. A high percent above code, how does that align conceptually with the idea of marching towards zero use? So that's one aspect of it. Another problem of it is that the regulated loads that are part of your code budget, your regulated code budget, is only heating, cooling, and water heating and ventilation, which is a tiny portion of your total energy use in a house, particularly in the low energy, the milder climates by the coast. San Diego, only 25% of your home or your building's energy is actually accounted for in percent above code. So how do you talk about Z&E when you're ignoring plug loads, appliances, and lighting and most of the building? So that's another reason. And then the third reason we got rid of it is that the baseline is getting really, really small. The quantity of energy that's embedded in there, so you can have small amounts of change, of energy improvement. You can save 50 kWh and have that be 5 or 10% better than code. And that is a tiny amount of wiggle room, and it makes the math not make it very easy to compare apples to oranges. So we switched to the CAHP score, which is an amalgamation of the California HERS design rating. And if you're familiar with ResNet HERS and National HERS, it's also very, very similar, except under the hood and in the math, it's using TDV value because it's California and that's what we do, rather than kWh or kBTU, which the ResNet score does. So it's a miles per gallon style rating. Getting towards zero is zero. It includes all the energy end uses, heating, cooling, and water, the regulated ones that I talked about before, but it also has lighting and appliances and plug loads. The program has an entry level of 84, and the math of this gets all calculated under the hood inside the Title 24 software, whether you're using Energy Pro or CBEC Res or RightSoft, which is still, I think, Right Energy Suite is still kind of launching. And then the program offers a fairly basic incentive structure. You get it in a score of 84. I guess I didn't mean to mention a score of 100 is defined as a 2008 standard prescriptive home. And the idea of that is that stays static over time rather than moving. Anyway, so the incentive schedule for both of these is you get in at 84, you get a certain amount of money, either $300 for single family or $150 for multifamily. And then for each point that you march deeper and below 84, you get an extra $100 or $50 for multifamily. And then once you reach this inflection point at 75, where the measures you would need to take to go deeper become more expensive, the incentive ramps up as well and becomes deeper per point, and you start getting $200 a point. We're expecting to pay out about $1,000 per home in the single family world, $500 per home in the multifamily world. And we're seeing already kind of Z&E caliber buildings that are Z&E ready, that have a low enough total load that it could have been made up by solar panels or is being made up by solar, are getting in the range of $6,000 of incentives from these programs. If you're in a cross utility territory where you're getting, gas or electric from one of the IOUs, or you're swapping, the IOUs work that out. If you're getting gas and electric from, say, SoCalGas and PG&E, they work with each other to make that easy for you. If you're not getting gas at all because you're off the grid and you're in an electric-only area, then this incentive curve gets cut by 35%, and you get an electric-only, which is 65% of the total, or vice versa. If you're only getting gas from the utility, it flops the other way. You get 35% of these totals. So these are kind of the broad incentives that are meant to drive building designers and builders to go deeper and deeper in each rendition of their development specs. We also give away a whole bunch of what we call CAHP points, which essentially just lower your CAHP score. And these are giveaways. These are, in addition to what your model already shows, we're going to give you an additional 3 points, 5 points, for various measures, and these are all driving towards Z&E. These are all sort of big, bold pushes to get designers to go even deeper than they would have and get these kicker bonuses. So one is doing a future code preparation measure, which is kind of doing a huge package that gets you definitively ready for 2016 code, matching a bunch of the stuff that's going to be in the 2016 code itself as the new prescriptive standards. And also a few other whole building metrics that we wanted to include. A building that takes this whole suite and has a pretty good design is probably Z&E ready. It's right on the brink. We're also giving away 3 points if you take part in the DOE's Zero Energy Ready Home program, which is formerly known as the DOE Challenge Home. I call this Energy Star on steroids. It's a DOE program. They give a really good design assistance package. They really talk through the building science of it. They rely a lot on verifications. It's a good learning process to go through. And if you're thinking about going Z&E, you may as well engage in their program as well, and get the extra credit in the CAHP incentive program and get the extra benefits of being part of that program, which has a really good support behind it, design support behind it. Then we give away 2 different bonus kickers, and these are cumulative, for lowering your total home's energy use beyond 2 very low thresholds. Ooh, excuse me, I shouldn't click my screen. Get below 100,000 TDV per year. That's for the entire house. So annualized, we give you 5 CAHP points. If you get below 60,000 KTDV, we give you another 5 points on top of that. And these are correlated approximately to the output of a mid to small size residential solar panel. And the idea being that if you've reached this low, you are essentially Z&E by the TDV definition of the state. And then finally, we have a new one that came out about 5 months ago for meeting 100% high efficacy lighting, and that's meeting the 2016 code lighting requirements early. And we give you another 3 points for that. And then we're working on some more in the background. Don't know when or if any of these will be launched, but these are the directions we're going. Home energy management systems, an all energy star appliance package, EPS water sense, and a few others are being sort of added to the program in the background. The participation process, whether it be CAHP or CMF&H, is very similar, and the program administrators are here to help you walk your way through it. But essentially, you submit a letter of intent and apply to the program. It gets plan reviewed. You go through sort of a little more stringent plan review at the program than you do your building department. It gets approved. You start building and getting HERS verifications in the field, and then you get paid. So very, fairly obvious and direct pathway there. And most of the projects, we mostly deal with production home builders. And the idea, you get paid at a house-by-house basis as you complete them, as you decide to request incentives per houses. So you don't have to wait for the entire development to be finished. You can submit incentive requests in batches. So as I mentioned before, I was also going to talk, so there's other programs going on in the state beyond the big IOUs, PG&E, SoCal Edison, so San Diego Gas, SoCal Gas. So SMUD runs a program that is very intentionally aligned with CAHP so that it's easier for the builder and the developer and their consultants to take part in it. Same thing, same framework. Score of 84 gets you in. Deeper incentives give you more money. The main difference is here is that there's a slightly altered incentive curve. A little bit more money at the start and a slightly lower ramp up, slower ramp. But talk to the SMUD folks and you can learn what your incentive would be. And then they also have a few prerequisites that do not exist in the CAHP program, and that's a 75% LED lighting prerequisite, demand response enabled thermostat prerequisite, and electric vehicle readiness. That means you have the conduit and the ability to put in an electric vehicle charging station at the garage or at the driveway, and that it's wired, prepped for that. Similarly, I know Roseville is working on redeveloping their program. LADWP, they have a partnership with SoCal Gas to take part in the CAHP program. I don't know enough about all the other. I know Palo Alto does something, but theirs is a little more holistic and full-based. But talk to your local utility. Because of the California mandate, all of these utilities are trying to drive towards Z&E, and they all have something along that offering to help you get there. So the other way that they're advancing Z&E design and getting towards Z&E, beyond just having the sort of do better than code, get incentives world, and the deeper the closer to Z&E you get, the deeper the incentives you get. The utilities also have highly dedicated design assistance programs really targeted towards getting to Z&E faster, and mostly it's proof of concept, proof of possibility, showing that particularly production home builders have the ability of going that deep. Custom home builders have proven that for the last decade. There's a number of custom home Z&E projects out there. This is to push to show that even that a production builder can as well, and it doesn't have to be, it can be a money maker. It doesn't have to break the bank to get there. And so one of such program is being launched across the state with all 4 IOUs. It's called the CAHP Master Builder Program, also called the Big 2, and also called the 2016 Code Readiness Program. We've had some fun with naming changes. So once again, I implement this on behalf of PG&E. It is launched and active in PG&E. It's still under contract negotiations and finding budget and all that fun stuff that utilities do in the southern utilities, but should be around the corner. And if someone you are working with or a builder you're talking to is interested, please mention it and have them mention it to those Southern California utilities who might push them to speed up the actually launching of the program and get it ready for you. But the purpose is to give very advanced design assistance for production builders to achieve 2 Z&E measures that are going to be in the 2016 code that are just different, just a little bit harder. It's not buying a more expensive, higher efficiency widget. It's really changing the design intention. Designs that builders have been building, their daddy built it that way, their granddaddy built it that way, sort of builder norms that are very hard to steer and move around. And so the program is designed to really help production builders get over that hurdle and change the way they think. The 2 measures are high performance attics, which also includes ducts and conditioned space. That's what DCS means. And then the other one is high performance walls. And I'll get into the definitions of what each of those measures are in the code in a few slides. But first, the program offering itself. The program offers $30,000 at a project level for a builder to do 25 lots to those 2 specifications plus whatever else they're doing. And that $30,000 is meant to offset all the design shreds, the extra design meetings, the redrawing of structural, the extra, working with your building department that might not understand why is there insulation under my roof deck suddenly, and is that approvable? It's meant to offset all those extra kind of one-off costs. 25% of the incentives get paid early and 75% get paid upon the verified installation of the 25th. And then the other thing is all 25 lots that go through the program also need to go through CAHP, and they get an estimated increase of about $1,000 to $3,000 per house, depending on the design, just for these two measures. The program also offers very deep technical training and resources, on-site training for the design team, energy consultants, and subcontractors. We work with product manufacturers to help them design installation guides and installation specifications, and getting ICC approval for their products if it's something that's kind of new and out there. And the program itself will help facilitate all of that and kind of accelerate the process, so the builder's not out there fighting and swimming upstream. They got sort of a dedicated partner whose entire job it is to deal with the one-off changes of doing these two measures. So we facilitate a design charrette and a workshop with your design team, help make sure that everyone, it's absolute for these two measures, getting high performance walls, which is essentially I'll go in detail in a few slides, but it's essentially switching to 2x6 and including rigid foam on the outside. Both of those things are needed to get to this U factor of wall. Switching to 2x6, it's a nightmare for a lot of builders, and they're not ready for it. They're not sure their framers can handle it. They're not sure how to impact the geometry of their building design, the stairwell, the cabinetry, the soffits, every aspect of it. If they're building in very dense fill neighborhoods, you have to either eat into the house or eat out of the house. You're expanding your wall thickness by 2 inches, 2.5 inches. That space has to get taken from somewhere, and sometimes you can't build out because you reach the easement rules, and you can't expand. You're too close to the lot line, which means you got to eat away at your square footage, which means you got to maybe redesign how you build your rooms out to make them the right size, and how you did. So there's a whole redesign layer when you switch to 2x6. And our job, part of the program's job, is to help you with those redesigns and help get everyone on the same page. Similarly, moving your ducts or moving your thermal envelope to include your ducts also takes a lot of design considerations and a lot of rethinking of what is normal practice. And our job is to help you through that all the way from your HVAC and your architects through the building departments, through construction, through your contractor trades. It is a limited availability program. So we're only doing 3 builder projects per IOU, and it also may be that Edison and SoCalGas, since they're obviously a very combined territory, mostly combined, that there's only going to be 3 in their combined territory. So there may only be 9 projects that are able to get through this program. The good news is we will be doing case studies and publishing those and getting the information out to the general energy efficiency industry at large for their information, for lessons learned of how this is done, how it got done, and maybe it can be used as a selling point working with other builders that didn't go through the program itself. So the builder themselves, they complete 25 lots within 12 months. They do either both measures. We are having a little backup option in case they can only do attics, recognizing that the walls is a bigger design change that not as many builders are ready to take off. It's also a smaller energy impact overall than the attic. The attics are the bigger bang for your buck. They're closer to the silver bullet. So we're allowing 1 project out of 3 to do high performance attics only instead of doing attics and walls. They have to agree to post occupancy monitoring for temperature, moisture, and energy use. They have to agree to participate in a case study, which hopefully is actually a benefit to them because they get some publication and some publicity. And that's about it. So how am I doing on time? All right, I got about 5 minutes, so I'll keep flying through these. I'm almost done with my slides. So I'll go into a little bit of detail on the 2 measures. High performance attics. Basically, putting ducts in an attic was the dumbest thing we ever did 60 years ago, 80 years ago, when ducts and air conditioning systems first came into fruition. It's about the worst place. You're putting a 50-degree chamber of moving air into a 140-degree bakehouse on top of the building. It's the worst delta T you can imagine. It's your most precious, high-cost air that you spent a lot of money cooling off, and you're running it right through one of the hottest places on Earth. It was a design of convenience when energy was cheap and not everyone did this, and it was a mistake. And so we're trying to remedy that these days. So 6 ways you can remedy that are illustrated on this page. You can do a cool attic, which is put an extra layer of, this is still a vented attic, open airflow, but putting a layer of insulation along the roof deck itself, either in the cavities between the studs or trusses, or putting it outside with a half zip or a rigid foam board or green hybrid roofing's insulated tiles, a few other ways of doing it, and basically prevent that hot sun from baking the attic space itself. A couple other tweak measures, and you can get very good performance out of that, and the attic temperature actually, instead of getting up to the 140s, 130s that it does in the summers here in California, your attic stays down in the 90s, and low hundreds, even on the hottest days. It tracks within 3 or 4 degrees of the outside ambient air, which is just a huge temperature delta difference, and reduces your duct losses formidably, as well as reduces the losses across the ceiling plane. Next one is the sealed attic, which is what most of the production builders these days are doing, is they're moving the envelope up to the roof line itself. That can get expensive because you still got to do your R30 or your R38 along that roof line. But there's a few, spray foam can do it. There's a lot of box netting systems coming out from both John Mansville and Owens Corning. So just move your envelope itself. Some complications in air sealing the eaves and some other complications, but also some energy savings. You don't have to seal the attic plane anymore. Your light cans can change. You don't have to put in O'Hagan vents and ridge vents. So there's some cost reductions there as well when you move the envelope to a sealed attic. Going ductless. One way of getting your ducts out of the attic is don't put ducts anywhere. And if you build a really good envelope, particularly in most of the coastal climate zones in California, you don't need a very big air conditioning system, if you need one at all. You need a half a ton once in a while. A ductless mini split or a ductless system can provide that cooling very effectively, and you don't have the duct losses. A couple other ways you can sort of do these 3 where you sort of move your envelope, either move your own envelope slightly by putting in a plenum, or just bring the ducts right into the house, into an interstitial space, either a drop soffit or space between 2 floors, or chaseway closets, or et cetera, et cetera. The other measure that is really pushing towards Z&E is high performance walls. It's being defined in the 2016 code as a U factor of 0.050 or lower. What that essentially means is, well, there are 4 walls that you can see. These are all, it's a 2x6 wall with some combination of cavity insulation and exterior insulation, exterior rigid. And that rigid can be behind stucco, which is the most common, but you can also put wood paneling or siding or hardy board or whatever else you want on the outside with rigid. It's not commonly done in California, but it's fairly common in other parts of the country and the world to do a rigid exterior surface followed by something other than stucco, than one-coat stucco. California seems to love our one-coat stucco. But here are a few combinations of framing thickness, framing stud spacing, framing width, cavity insulation, and exterior insulation that all work. It is possible to achieve this with a 2x4 wall. It's just really hard. You got to put in 2 inches of rigid on the outside to make it happen. And that messes with windows, with nailing patterns, with it messes with a lot, with structural. So it's possible, and there are builders that do it, and folks in the passive house community would holler at me for saying that it's hard because they've been building with thick R10, R12 exterior for a long time. But for a production builder, it's kind of outside the box a bit and takes some new changes. There's also some advanced options that could reach this: double walls, staggered stud walls, structurally insulated panels, ICFs. That would be an option as well. So that is the code readiness program from the 4 major IOUs, investor-owned utilities in the state. You can also get design assistance from a lot of the munis. Within SMUD territory, they don't have a formal program per se, but if you go to Michelle Friedrich, who runs their Z&E research arm, she will get you help. She'll find experts. She'll deliver it to you, no cost to you, to help you with your Z&E design on cost effectiveness research, design assistance, manufacturing installation training, energy modeling, peak energy reductions, all these same things that are going on in CAHP. It's not a formalized program, but if you're working with particularly a production builder who's doing a lot of lots that wants to show Z&E, contact Michelle and she'll work with you and figure out what kind of help she can offer you and what kind of help you need in getting to Z&E early. So that is that for my slide deck. I guess I'll pause. How am I doing on time? Looks like it was perfect. We got about 15 more minutes before we got to wrap up, so I'm open to questions. And I guess, Layla, will you help facilitate those?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Matt. That was really great information. So we're going to open the line now. If anyone has any questions that came up throughout the presentation about some projects that came up or anything else, please submit those now. We do have one question is, a builder is asking, how do they know what their incentives will be for the homes that they're building?
Yeah, so the incentive, assuming you're in one of the primary utility territories, within Energy Pro or CBEC Res, your Title 24 modeling software, when you model it to figure out what your Title 20, there's a couple extra check boxes you can click, and you can get what is called your CAHP incentive report, CIR. You just have to tell it that I want to get this report, and it's fairly self-evident, or you can contact my staff afterwards and we'll point you through how to get it. But it spits out your incentive. It does all the calculations for you. It comes on a nice little PDF. It says what your energy savings are, what your energy savings by end use is, so you know what you can target to get even deeper most effectively, and it tells you your incentive.
Awesome. That seems pretty straightforward. Pretty easy program. At what stage of construction would someone start to begin the process for the incentives?
So for the core incentive programs, the rule is you have to have applied to the program before you hang any drywall. That's the limit. That's the outer limit. We urge and we suggest that as soon as you're sending building plans to the building department, send them to us as well. Because the only chance for design changes or slight modifications or adding some tests is then, and it lets you get through the plan review process. It makes HERS registration issues easier because you don't start doing tests before the plan review for the program works through. So we suggest that when you send it to the building department, send it to the program at the same time and let it go through plan review simultaneously. But the very end limit is you must apply to the program before you hang any drywall.
Okay.
And if you're within the program, design assistance is part of it. So if you're, you just want a second pair of eyes of what else can I do to get this better, to get this deeper cost effectively, send it to the program staff. Design assistance is a program component. It's free. It's something we're trained to do, and it's our job to do.
Great. Good information. So far, it looks like we don't have any other questions at the moment, although we are going to have another small break and a pause to answer any other questions that filter in. But at the moment, it looks like we've answered all the questions, Matthew.
That's impressive. I normally get more than that.
I know.
I do have one. If anyone's heard my webinars before, or any other presentations I've done, I share this photo quite often as sort of a closing thought before we, as people think up one or two more questions before they go on with their mornings. All this stuff with code and modeling and precision, it doesn't matter if it doesn't actually get built well and get done well in the field. And particularly you folks in the Build It Green community and the Greenpoint rated community, your set of eyes in the field for making sure this stuff gets built right for real is absolutely crucial and valuable, and a necessary component to what everyone's doing on the energy efficiency front. This is a photo I took at a house that I was doing a field assessment of. It's a 2x6 wall, R19, quality insulation installation credit was taken. It is 100% wood. This is a horrible wall. This is in the Central Valley. This is climate zone 13. And you got to imagine that that wall is going to be baking hot all year, all summer long. and nice and cold all winter long because it has no insulation in it. But by the definition of Title 24, that's an entirely legal wall to build. You can do that house, you can do the entire house that way. So quality is in the details and the actual field installation, and I appreciate what all of you do towards getting us there and keeping us there.
Awesome. So we're going to leave Matthew's contact information up on the screen for anyone who wants to jot this down. Just as a reminder, we're recording this, and we're going to send out the slide deck and the recording out to you in a follow-up email. Matthew, I'm going to take controls back from you and just talk a little bit about some upcoming trainings and things that we have coming up. Just make sure I'm here.
And I'll stay on in case you have other questions for me.
Exactly. Please do. This is your time, people. We have Matthew, our expert, on the line. So if you have any questions, please do ask them now. And you do that by opening the questions pane, typing in your question, and clicking submit. While we wait for some more questions to come on, I'm just going to let you guys know that this webinar is being sponsored by Greenpoint Rated, which is the leading green home certification system in California, with more than 31 homes certified, including multifamily properties, single-family properties. We run the gambit. Greenpoint Rated is a simple, affordable, and flexible rating system used by countless builders and developers. It assures residents that a building is healthier, more comfortable, durable, and resource efficient. The Greenpoint Rated team is comprised of leading green building experts, and they helped put together this webinar series and set the agenda for which sustainability topics are most relevant to developers and managers like you in our audience. By visiting buildagreen.org/Greenpoint Rated, you'll find a series of checklists to see what kind of upgrades are factored into a Greenpoint Rated certification, and oftentimes this falls in line with a lot of net zero energy measures. And as always, there's more educational opportunities for you. We have a few webinars coming up that we think are really informative, in line with what Matthew presented today. We have water conservation in multifamily buildings. We're going to look at a few case studies and how to improve water conservation. In addition, we have the Fannie Mae's Green Initiative, an innovative financing option for multifamily properties. We're going to focus on EEMs and closing out those in that webinar. Additionally, we have a net zero energy case study, the Desert Rain Project in Bend, Oregon. We're going to have the builder, James Fagan from Timberline Construction, join us to detail some lessons learned, best practices from the project Desert Rain. All the webinars, we have registration links up for you here. You can also visit buildagreen.org and look at our calendar of events to see, to register for any of those trainings. Additionally, down south, we're going to have a certified green building professional training coming up in September. That's September 22nd and 23rd. That's in 2 days. You become certified as a green building professional. I know a few of you in our audience have earned that certification. If there's anyone you think is yearning to learn about the basics overview of green building, have them come join us for this class. Mark Richmond, our instructor, is really great and really gets down to the nitty-gritty of green building. I just want to thank Matthew for joining us today. You've been really great, informative. I wish we had more questions for you because I'm sure you'd be able to answer all of them. If anyone does have questions coming up from now until tomorrow, shoot an email over to training@buildagreen.org and we can see if Matthew can answer that and include that answer in a follow-up email. Matthew, thanks so much for joining us today and lending your time. Everyone else in the audience, thank you for participating today and joining us, and hopefully you've learned some great information. We are going to leave the line open for a little bit. I know that one person has their hand raised, so I'll address that. If anyone else has any questions, please submit them in, but thank you for joining us today. Matthew, thank you so much, too.
My pleasure.